All right, so everyone's still talking about that Bret Baier interview with Elon Musk and the DOGE team. And I got to tell you, I am thrilled that they took the time because the charm offense is part of this, folks. Right? You have to sell Americans on ideas. Even, it's so ironic, people who voted for this, people who said, yeah, you know what, we really want Trump to go in there and shake things up to drain the swamp. They're feeling it, right? They're afraid. And so, the efforts have to be redoubled over and over again. Trump and his team have to make sure that they understand, because let's face it, the media is having major success in scaring folks, even those who voted for smaller government, even those who voted for tariffs. In fact, check out the spike. And this is people who have actually heard bad stories about government economic policy. That number it's at the very end, it looks like the sort of the border of the chart. That's the spike, folks. We should have put a red dot at the top of that. Never before has there been this much scared tactics out there, and the public is out there. They see it. And of course, it's so funny, right? You see the media saying, wow, the public is scared. Yeah, of course. Don't feign shock and surprise that there's gambling here. You forced it, right? So take a bow. Let's bring in now the Federalist Elections correspondent, Brianna Lyman, along with journalist Batya Angar Sagar. I got about 80% of that right, I think, right? Batya, okay.
Thank you for having me.
I got to give you a high five because you went on Bill Maher and you killed it, right? I mean, they were expecting you to say something different, but when you explained to the fact that, hey, this is really what America's voted for. And I really hope that somehow the average person out there can separate themselves in their mindset from Wall Street. Don't get fooled by what's happening in the stock market. This has to happen if Americans, not just Wall Street, will have a chance.
You are so right. For the last 3 election cycles, Wall Street gave to Democrats because they saw what President Trump's economy represents: money in the pockets of working class people. That's what a strong border represents, a tight labor market, which puts money in the pockets of working Americans. And that's what the tariffs are doing. They are taking a spigot that was an upward transfer of wealth from our hardest working Americans into the pockets of the elites. And Trump is turning that spigot down so that that money ends up in the pockets of the hardest working Americans.
Even this stuff under Biden, all those programs, $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there, they knew that ultimately that money would end up in the pockets of the top 1%. So I always say that really that was a transfer of wealth to political donors. And we have to, don't we, Brianna? I mean, how are your friends thinking about this? Because I look outside, I live in New Jersey, right? From the folks doing the gardening, the folks building the houses, most of them I know are here illegally. But I also know personally hundreds and hundreds of people, young people who don't work. They're out of the labor force. They get paid to stay out of the labor force.
Right, you incentivize young folks to stay home, and that's been a problem with the welfare system since it's been created, right? It is incentivizing people not to work. And I do want to go back to that DOGE interview. We have seen the left-wing media try to make caricatures out of Elon Musk and the rest of the DOGE team to try and make them seem like they are unqualified or unserious. What we saw last night in that interview is a group of extremely intelligent and serious men laying out the most basic principles to the American people, and I think it does help sell them, like what you said.
What was the most shocking of all the things that you heard last night? Because I think that not the $1 billion per se. On the survey, that was maybe a $10,000 survey from
that's what I thought.
But when Elon said that it was routine, that they routinely find these things, is what really bothers me.
You know, this waste, fraud, and abuse, this really is what people voted for. For my second book, Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women, I traveled around the country and interviewed working class people from both political parties. They all brought up how frustrating they find what you were pointing out, that people stay home and don't work and all this fraud. I will, however, say, though, you know, these stories of seniors sitting on the phone for 5-6 hours, not being able to get through to Social Security, this is unacceptable. Our seniors are very vulnerable. They should be reassured. They should know that they're going to get their benefits. And I will also point out, Elon Musk does have certain conflicts of interest. He has an AI company. I wonder if he has his eye on using AI in government. We have to make sure that there's no big contracts going out here. I think it's very important to keep an eye on that as well.
Brianna?
I agree. Actually, I thought the survey thing was really interesting there because it just shows you the inefficiency in government. And just a few weeks ago, we heard of the institutional wealth of some guy at a National Park Service with the key to the bathroom. They were trying to justify keeping him in his job. So I think Elon Musk and DOGE is really uncovering the absurdity of a lot of this waste.
And what happens here is so ironic is that as the markets are under pressure and there's worries and concerns about inflation, the Federal Reserve has to have what they call restrictive policy. Well, this restrictive policy has put interest rates so high, trillions have gone into money markets. The rich have gotten richer. And everyone else has simply just gotten higher credit card bills. And so do you guys think that, and I know Trump has alluded to it, but would you like to see more intervention, not intervention, but oversight of the Federal Reserve?
It's a really good question, and I'm very curious to see which direction President Trump goes in. You know, in the first administration, they accused him of only caring about the rich. Now we see the truth of the matter is that every decision he makes on the economy, he's thinking about average, middle-class, working-class Americans, and that's what's going to guide that decision, I believe.
Yeah, and that's why so many people are opposed to what's happening with Elon Musk, with DOGE, and with Donald Trump, because it threatens corporate America, which has acted as mostly a welfare state of the government, right? Any type of fraud or waste we see in the government isn't an accident. It is a business model for these corporations and for the extremely wealthy.
And to your point, taxpayers spend billions covering the same Medicaid patient twice. And, you know, so Aetna, United Health, all of these companies, they know they're getting paid twice. They're not going to say anything. But what about the people who are getting a lot of money, these NGOs? I feel like it's criminal. And maybe we're moving so fast, to your point, with respect to the checks and balances of this, we won't have the time to prosecute or go after that. But at some point, should we redouble, go back and find out who actually was taking this taxpayer money? Someone's cashing these checks.
Yeah.
Someone cashed that $1 billion check for a survey that we didn't use.
I mean, the NGO industrial complex, right? This is the funding mechanism of the Democratic Party. And so a lot of the decisions that seem totally incomprehensible from the Democrats, the open border, for example, you look at why are they making these decisions? NGO industrial complex, Soros, all of the money in that party is pushing them to make those decisions. And unlike President Trump, they simply cannot marginalize their donor base.
Charles, you mentioned the Medicaid thing. Joe Biden introduced the streamlining Medicaid eligibility rule. And what that did is it effectively limited states to one eligibility check per year. It also made a really long time for them to kind of remove people. So there has to be action taken at the congressional level as well to kind of redouble these efforts at the federal level to stop this waste, fraud, and abuse.
15 seconds. Do you think the American public will hold out,